Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios, man. We got local, state, national, covering down on all the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. It is that day of days. It is the day of the week that we all like the most. It is Friday. Friday. Outstanding. Well, congratulations on making it all the way to the end of the week. Got the weekend ahead of you. I hope you got plans for a good one. And today, speaking of good ones, Rumors on the board. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. I mean,
it's Friday.
tell what you just told me. I'm good.
And tell what I just told you. Oh, about the rates?
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, we were just talking Boomer's experience in real estate and all that. We're talking about how hard it is right now. And the Fed just raised the rate again, which is not even part of the dipper. But, like, literally, Charlene just texted me as I'm about to start saying, hey, welcome to Rightside Radio. And I'm like, holy cow.
Great.
But
it's Friday.
Whoop, whoop. All right. Hey, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. Going to be in studio here a little bit later at 3:30 with State Senator Garland Gudger from the Coleman area, one of the Republican members of the Alabama State Senate. Going to talk to him about some economic development, things that he's sponsored and been a part of. He also, by the way, chairs the committee that I used to chair called the Committee on Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Development, which we just call FRED. But anyway, State Senator Garland Gudger coming in at 3:30 in studio. And in the meantime, I got a whole triple dipper and maybe a mini dipper. Hit it, bud.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Now, it's not a full dipper, but there ain't no way I could go without talking about Trump's mugshot. So we're going to talk about that probably for a few minutes before I even really kick in. And then number 1, the Triple Dipper, true dipper, rabid Russia. Listen, what is happening in Russia right now with the Wagner Group, with potential assassinations, with the purge of top generals, and with the movement of tactical nukes potentially to Belarus, all these things, this is not the way stable governments operate. It's not. And we should be extremely wary of what is happening. I don't care what you think about the war in Ukraine. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about Russia itself. Rabid Russia. That's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, in conjunction with our conversation with State Senator Gudger, jobs, jobs, jobs. I mean, that's part of the job of the Alabama legislature is to set the environment, not pick the winners and losers, but to set the environment that then helps spur the economy to greater growth. We're going to talk about economic development, site selection, and things that we can do as a state to put ourselves in a better posture so that we are competitive on the broader field with the 50 others, with the 49 other states. So there's that. Number 2, Triple Dipper, jobs, jobs, jobs. And then number 3, there is some knuckleheaded stuff going on out there. I mean, I'm talking about jackassery of the highest order. And so I got to looking at it. It's not like woke world. It's not that kind of stuff where you poke fun. This is like impacting people's lives. And so I just called it, is common sense uncommon? Is common sense uncommon? And we'll talk about that as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump over to my comments here, and I'm going to get a little nostalgic today. Before I do that, though, just remind you guys that Southern Immediate Care, a chain of medical clinics all throughout North Alabama, is the sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. They are open 7 days a week, locations in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. Southern Immediate Care. You need care on the weekend, that's who you can call. All week long, 7 days a week, Southern Immediate Care. All right, let me do this. My comments. I gotta tell you, so the other night, we did our soiree, Dale Jackson and Congressman Brooks and myself and Mecca Music. We did our soiree at Terry's Pizza on Bailey Cove Road in Huntsville. Well, that was my old stomping grounds in high school. Right across the street. I mean, Terry's Pizza is directly across the street from the old Grissom High School. And being there, I'll be honest with you, it's not like I haven't gone home in a while, but it's still something about being right there just made me nostalgic. My old house was right next door. I could literally have shouted from my, parking lot spot in front of Terry's Pizza to my old house. And it brought back just floods of memories. And I remember one of them in particular. Milton Frank Stadium, fall 1981. Grissom High School was playing somebody in football. I can't recall who. But I was dressed for the game, which, by the way, did not guarantee I was going to get any playing time, but I assure you I was dressed for the game. Coach Stiles was one of our football coaches. And if I recall, the game was not going our way. And all of a sudden, Coach Stiles just started waving his hands in the air and yelled, "Herschel Walker, where are you?" It was one of those like funny, not funny moments. That was the day when Herschel Walker was a sight to behold in college football. He won the Heisman Trophy at the end of that same season, if I recall. And Coach was invoking the name of the greatest running back of the day as a means of wishing that he had a deeper bench to work with that evening under the lights. Well, here's one for you. Let me flip it to politics. Ronald Reagan, where are you? That's how I feel when I look at the current state of politics. We just had the first of the GOP primary debates the other night. And I do see statesman-like demeanor in some of the current slate of candidates and other politicos who weren't even on the stage. I mean, there's some Reagan-esque glimmers of hope. I can see some things. I mean, aside from what we already know about Donald Trump's policies, we also see Ron DeSantis and people like Kristi Noem and Jim Jordan, who are not even running for president, and a few others. But there is, really kind of in a broader sense, there's no march to a conservative drum within the larger party. I mean, I say yet because I can sense a turning. There's a growing dissatisfaction with status quo politics and establishment solutions. And I believe that we may yet see the new face of the party, not to take away from Donald Trump, but he won't be with us in perpetuity given his age. The most he could have is one more term. So at some point that new face will arise, that new face, and we need it to. But what is it about Ronald Reagan, though, that still sparks a sense of hope? Looking back on it, they even branded certain aspects of that time in his name. It was the Reagan era. It was peace through strength. It was the end of the Cold War. It was a return to an age of prosperity and national pride and military strength and international respect. It was, in fact, all because of the Reagan era. When Ronald Reagan passed away in 2004, there were mourners who stood in line for the better part of a full day on the National Mall just to have the opportunity to pass in front of his casket as he lay in state in the rotunda of the Capitol, flanked on all sides by an honor guard from each of the military services. Not since FDR, or maybe to an extent JFK, has a president evoked such passion and a sense of connection with the general public. I read one writer's ode to Reagan that said that what FDR was to the first half of the 20th century, Reagan was to the second half. I can remember my father, who was a career Army officer, talking about what it was like to live through those Carter years when he referred to it as a hollow army, but Dad was able to serve through the first term of the Reagan years, and it was night and day. Reagan was more than just a great president. He gave our country back its pride. He won the Cold War. He defeated communism without firing a shot. He revived the economy. He restored the sense that America was unapologetically free and government was not always the answer. He was legitimately comfortable in front of a microphone. He could crack a joke or crack a whip, or both, without blinking or looking lost. And Reagan coined phrases that we still reference today. Things like referring to the United States as a great city on a hill, or describing the battle against communism as a rendezvous with destiny. He defied his advisors and famously went to the Brandenburg Gate and boldly said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And he determined to enter into agreements with a trust but verify stance. He said that peace comes through strength, and he meant it. These were all the kind of things that we expected from Reagan. He coined those phrases, and we still use them today. And Reagan, he had a full career in entertainment, and he entered politics at a relatively late age. He was 56 when he first won public office. He was nearly 70 when he became president. And when he died at age 93, he had passed John Adams as America's longest-lived president at that point. Reagan was a leader. He had skills, and his ability to provide oratory were honed over decades before entering in public life. He served as president of the Screen Actors Guild from 1947 to 52 and again from 59 to 60. He came out early and strong in opposition to communists and Hollywood labor battles. His work as a corporate spokesman for General Electric in the 50s made him a television star. He honed his public speaking abilities. He pushed him further on his rightward trajectory away from New Deal politics. But the real kicker came when Reagan gave a 1964 televised speech on behalf of Barry Goldwater that jump-started his political career. It was in that speech, one that I, by the way, highly recommend everybody watch again if possible, that he so effectively used FDR's line originally about facing a rendezvous with destiny. Some say that Goldwater got the nomination because of Reagan's speech. One article that I read from National Review states that despite being a political novice and a Republican since only 1962, that Reagan had won the GOP gubernatorial nomination in '66 and went on to take the governorship with 1 million votes to spare. Californians apparently liked Reagan's conservative positions against big government and high taxes and urban riots and campus unrest and anti-war protest. By the way, any of that sound familiar to you today? Californians reelected him in 1970, and in 1980, after suffering through the Carter years, Reagan won the nomination to be the Republican candidate for President of the United States. And of course he won. 4 years later, I was old enough to cast my first ever vote at the polls for his reelection. Now, I say all this to point out something. The years that led up to Reagan's election, they were tumultuous at best. We had an economy in the pits. We had a public spirit in despair. We had a national image that was tarnished. Foreign governments struggled to respect us as a force on the international stage. But keep this in mind, my friends. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It took a Carter to bring us a Reagan. Think about it. It took a Carter to bring us a Reagan. Now, I'm not at all enamored, you know that, of our current president. I respect and I salute the office, but I want a new office holder. I am already looking at the horizon for 2024, and I believe that we may find that it took a Biden to bring us the next Reagan, and we need that person for such a time as this. Ronald Reagan, where are you? Stay tuned, folks. There may be one coming, and that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yes, indeed. I'm telling you, Ronald Reagan, I mean, he broke the mold. And it's obvious. I mean, there were things being named about him while he still lived. The ideas of Reagan and the nostalgia of Reagan and the phrases that he used, all of it. But the governance and the policies, he's still the measuring stick. We need another one. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right on this beautiful but rather hot Friday afternoon. What's the temperature out there right now? Like 95? Boom? I mean, it's just, praise God for air
Hot.
conditioning.
It's just hot.
I said after Baghdad I'd never complain about the heat again. Apparently it's been long enough to where I could forget that I made that promise. But man, smoking hot out there. Text lines are indeed open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We'll be joined later in the day in the studio here with State Senator Garland Gudger. And text lines, like I said, are already open. I got several that have already jumped in. I had, where did it go? Oh, shoot. I had one that just texted me, Amy from Danville. She must have gone to Gadsden High. She says, because she asked me, says, Phil, did you have Mr. Lynn as a history teacher? I said, yes, I did. If I'm not mistaken, too, Mr. Lynn was the one who, he was a reenactor, and he brought his black powder rifle to school, and once a year he'd get permission to set that thing off in the classroom. It was good luck with doing that now. But yes, I did. What do we got here? Dennison from Athens sent me a picture. He's got his favorites. So this is Dennison from Athens. I think is also the same thing as David from Huntsville. But the bottom line is I've got a side by side now of DeSantis and Nikki Haley, and then I've got a side by side of Ronald Reagan and Ron DeSantis. So apparently he's a Ron DeSantis fan. Okay, Tracy from Athens. If my texture will come back up as it reprograms itself, says Ronald Reagan is the reason we missed the 80s. Indeed. Yeah, that and big hair. Yeah. Big hair bands. And my sweet Charlene was a big hair lady back in the 80s. I married me a big hair girl. Had the big 80s perm. It's awesome.
The big fluffy.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Brian from Huntsville. Reagan was my first commander-in-chief. He was my first presidential vote. He was the primary reason I enlisted. I miss that man. I agree. And again, thanks for your service, Brian. David from Huntsville, which I believe is the same as Dennison from Athens, says, what was the point of taking a mugshot of a former president? Mugshots are taken in case after being charged, a person tries to flee before trial. It's used to help law enforcement and the public identify them. I agree. I'll tell you what it was, and we all know what it was. It was the idea of being able to get Trump's mugshot. They got to get their mugshots. Then we can use it. Well, I got news. It backfired in a huge way. So if you haven't seen it, Trump was banned from Twitter 2 years ago. He's back, and he's back with a mugshot. He came back this morning, reopened his old account, and issued out his mugshot to the world, him scowling. And I reposted it on my Twitter account, and I said when I see this photo, I can hear Liam Neeson's voice.
That's really funny.
I have a particular set of skills. I will find you. He just has that look like,
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Well, watch out.
Well, the Kraken may have been released finally. Jimmy from Somerville is, I guess he's new in the text string. We're glad of it. Laura from Arab says, just to say, check out Local Joe's Barbecue, Albertville or Gadsden. Great food and patriots. Okay, well, thanks. I guess I got a free ad there for Local Joe. By the way, I've been to Local Joe's many times. Enjoy it thoroughly. So, free ad, especially when I like it. Barbecue's always good. Finish some of these up. David from Lincoln. Feels like 111 degrees in Childersburg. A little bit warm. Man, I'm saying. And then John from Huntsville. I was the 24th person to join Boomer's college football pick'em group. This is my time for redemption after my college basketball disaster. Because this time, I'm going to use my top secret strategy that I should have used last time, and I'm going to stick with it every single week.
We'll see.
He's got a top secret strategy.
Top secret strategy.
I'll tell you what, Boom, I should have left you time for that. Let's do this right after the break. We're going to talk about your pick'em.
Cool.
So we can lay it out there for
Lay it
everybody.
out, and it is up on our website too now.
Indeed.
So, easy.
I got to get myself in it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do. But yeah.
So you can pick those Tigers to win every week, right?
Every single week. Hugh Freeze is the counter to Saban now. I can feel it. It's going to be awesome. We don't know who our quarterback is for sure, but we like them all.
We like them all. We're going to play them all.
Carnell's going to have the best running backs. It's going to be awesome. Just saying. Down to the plains, we're going to be rolling some tumors. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Because actually, they did just say, by the way, this year, the new Oaks have been released for rolling. They have been
released.
they've
to
been released
roll.
for
Okay.
rolling. So traditions
We'll come back.
die hard, and they do come back when we get a chance. All right, we got plenty on the slate for you today. You guys stay tuned. We're going to be talking with State Senator Garland Gudger 3:30ish, and then coming up next after we talk about college pick'em, we're going to be going to rabid Russia. Because folks, I'm just telling you, what is happening over there in Russia? What's happening over there in Russia is just like way uncommon. It is not normal. It's really unstable. This is not the way, first world countries are supposed to act. And we'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. All right, time now, 3:34, and I'm saying this show we cover down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. And I mean, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right, before we go any further, College Pick'em. Talk to us.
Yes. All right. So sent out a text today
to our text strings.
Yep, through the text stream, and then also it is on our website. So it's up on our website on the main page, up to the right corner. You can click for the directions, and it also has the link there. All you gotta do is click on the link, put in the group number, password that I already have there on for you, and then just sign up. And then you make your picks every week. They usually come out on Monday or Tuesday. Just make them before the game.
So they'll come like to your email address or something?
It'll come to your email address, or you can sign up for the app as well. Just have the app on your phone. So you
I hate apps.
I know you hate apps, but you can do it through your email and through your computer as well. So it makes it super simple. Thanks to everyone that's already signed up. This is more just to get everybody involved and just keep us ruffians together.
You got several dozen that have already jumped right in.
Yeah, I believe we're up to close to 30.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
I mean, we just did it this afternoon or this morning.
How many do we have in the NCAA March Madness?
I think we had close to
like 100 and something.
Close to 100, yeah. Or maybe a little over. So this will be fun.
All right, good deal. So yeah, I mean, we will not abuse those text lines. We do this very sparingly, but yes. So we sent out to the 900 and something people we have, or whatever it is, in the text lines. We sent y'all a message earlier. Check your phones. If you don't see it, then text us now at 833-687-4448. Get in the system. And if you need the information, Boomer can send it to you. But yeah, and this is not rocket science either, right, Boomer? We're not doing any of the
this is not
spreads and do all that
spread.
Kind of
this is just flat out who do you think's going to win?
Bam.
So makes it a lot easier. Just
Auburn.
I don't think Auburn is going to play every game.
Or Eagles strike out the bat. As he shuts off his mic and goes back to the board. All right. Hey, listen, I gotta spend a minute talking before I jump into my dippers here, because what just happened yesterday is just beyond the pale. And now if somebody out there in law enforcement would care to correct me, I would be glad to hear it. But my recollection is that a mugshot is a part of standard processing. However, it is also waivable, generally speaking, and it is generally done to make sure that you have a physical record of the looks of the individual in the event that they become a flight risk. Pretty sure Trump's image is pretty well known. But, oh, man, we're going to get us some Trump mugshot. Got to get us some Trump mugshot. And they got it. And it's the first time in the history of the United States this has ever happened, that a former president of the United States has had a mugshot. Now, listen, think about it. This is the fourth indictment. Did anybody else take a mugshot? No, they didn't. Why? Because they were trying not to make it into a circus. Not that it wasn't already, but you know what I'm saying. They didn't want to advance the cause, so to speak. All they did was inflame the passions of Trump supporters left and right. Just totally inflame the passions. And at the same time, it's becoming the meme of the year. And not, by the way, in the way they might have thought it would. Because the very first thing that happened is Trump, who's been banned from Twitter for the last 2 years, went back on his Twitter account and published his own mugshot and said that they're basically trying to steal the election. And he put up there the website where you can support his campaign. And I guarantee you, he has probably seen a spike in donations today. So yeah, I mean, this what a jackleg situation. This is just unbelievable. And the very idea that we're having to do this is just so banana republic. Yeah, okay. Well, nobody's above the law, Phil. Nobody's above the law. This is not it. This is political. You know it is. You cannot tell me it took Fannie, Willis, 3 years to figure out whether to bring allegations against Trump. Charges could not get levied for 3 years. Oh, right in the middle of the campaign season. and now she wants to pursue the arraignment right around the time of the next debate. Oh, by the way, she wants to pursue the trial like right before the primary election season. Just all said and done, everything about this reeks. And if you don't think, by the way, let me just back up. Prosecutors are also allowed a certain amount of discretion. You can not declining to prosecute. I mean, that can happen too. You can assign prioritization. You can have plea deals. And you can also, by the way, work to determine that you've got the right case in the right posture at the right time. Timing is also everything. Statutes of limitations, you don't want them to run, but nonetheless, beyond that, timing is also essential. So what's happening? She slaps this thing together using novel theories of law and indicts Trump and 18 other people, some of whom were just making phone calls on behalf of Trump because he was their boss, some of whom were attorneys who were acting on his behalf to file legal challenges that they are allowed to file by law. And yet here we are. It's not political, Phil. This is real. Ain't nobody above the law. We got to do this. Do you really? And mugshot too? Well, then why didn't the other 3 indictments do mugshots? 91 counts that he's facing right now. But these are the ones where he had to have the mugshot because Fannie Willis needed a poster for her wall, I guess. All said and done, this is a mess. It's an absolute mess. But Trump, in classic fashion, is showing us what it's like. Here's the thing. Bullies don't know what to do when you laugh in their face and stand up to them. They don't know what to do. So I would bet you that they decided, before he even got to Atlanta, they decided, you know what? Let's get that mugshot and do something with it. What do you want to do? Maybe time to go back on Twitter. Wow, that's an idea. First post in 2 years? Yep, let's do it. So here we are. And it was a by the way, there's always that moment where you're thinking, okay, it's time for mugshot. Which face do I use? Do I do the happy I could care less face? Do I do the tearful I can't believe this is happening to me face? Do I do the stare in the camera like I want to throttle somebody face? That's what he chose. He chose the stare in the camera with the look that says, if I could reach you right now. And like I said earlier, I look at that image and I swear I hear Liam Neeson's voice. I have a particular set of skills. I will find you. So we'll see how this goes, but already it is backfiring for him. All right, hey, we're going to start the next one right after this break. I'm going to take the break about a minute or so early, and because that is my prerogative. As Boomer looks at me like, what are you doing? I'm taking a break. Taking the break about a minute early so I can come back and just dive right in. Rabid Russia. Craziness happening over there. We got to talk about it because, y'all, that's a nuclear nation, one of our few near-peer adversaries on the world stage. And they are going through some strange stuff right now. I'll tell you about it when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense a superpower. Hey, number one, triple dipper. I guess we can call the Trump mugshot thing a mini dipper. So maybe I'll get some extra points from John. Just throwing that out there, John, in case you're listening. But number one of the triple dipper, the true dipper here is rabid Russia. So, wow. I mean, listen, let's keep in mind who we're talking about. You might say, it's Russia. No, it's one of the largest countries in the world. It is a nuclear nation. It is a nation that is still, despite its, ridiculous, efforts in Ukraine, is still considered one of the strongest armies in the world, and is what we would often refer to in the military as a near-peer adversary. Nuclear Russia has some strange stuff going on right now. The kind of things that should give everybody who watches foreign policy should have a real moment of pause with what is happening right now. Not that it's unexpected. On the one hand, you kind of look at some of the stuff and you go, it's Russia. I mean, it's Putin. Yeah, don't slip into that. This is not normal. What we're about to talk about here, this is aberrant behavior, okay? This is like Mafia Don stuff. This is like you crossed the Don and now he's going to make you an offer you can't refuse. You know what I'm saying? Not for nothing. But Jimmy the Nose is going to come and seize you. All right, so what we got right now is just like a series of events that when you look at them in their totality should make everybody wonder what in God's name is happening in Russia. And should we be concerned about the stability of their leadership? Should we be concerned about the security of their nuclear devices? Should we be concerned about what they will do if Putin wakes up in the wrong mood one day? Start with this. You may remember Yevgeny Prigozhin. Yevgeny Prigozhin, just to refresh those of you who may not recall, Yevgeny Prigozhin was in the Putin inner circle. And the guy was a thug. He looked like a Bond villain. If you've ever seen him, he looked like he literally could have just come right out of a James Bond movie. Of course, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. That's what he looked like. And Prigozhin was a guy who got out of jail after 10 years for violent crimes. Started selling hot dogs on the streets. Apparently, he was pretty well heeled with the hot dog business. So he went from there to sort of starting a catering business. At some point in the catering business, he met Putin. They became, buddies, and his catering business began to get huge contracts from the federal government, the Russian government. We're talking about massive contracts. Like it's been estimated, story here, pull this one off of Fox. It's been estimated that contracts to his catering company went into the billions over time, billions with a B. As a result of his billions, Prigozhin then started what was known as the Wagner Group. And the Wagner Group was a private army. Now, some folks may say, yeah, but Phil, we got things like Blackwater and, Triple Canopy and organizations where contractors go down range and do military stuff. Not like this. They started off that way. The Wagner Group started off that way, but the Wagner Group began to morph into a private army, not like private contractors who carry small arms and stuff like a private army with tanks, artillery, helicopters, all of it. And they became pretty prolific at creating carnage everywhere they went. They were known for violence. They were known for, like for instance, the article I'm looking at right here. The group is accused of massacring and raping civilians, exploiting natural resources in poor countries with dire security situations. Resources like gold, oil, and gas, all of which went back to the Russian government. It gave the Russian government the chance to sort of say, well, that's not us doing it. It's Wagner doing their thing. Wagner worked for Putin. Wagner was basically Putin's right-hand man for things he didn't want to have to send the Russian army to do. And he could do it without the approval of additional Russian leadership. They acted with impunity. All that to say, Wagner was actually fighting in Ukraine. And then Prigozhin began to get dissatisfied, believing that his troops were not getting the arms because he was facing the jealousy of generals who were like, who is this fake army when I have my real army? and he wasn't getting the resupply that he needed. He wasn't getting logistical support that he felt he needed, and he wasn't getting the fires support that he felt he needed. And so Prigozhin began to openly complain. Finally, you may recall this like 2 months ago. How long has it been, Boomer? Like 2 months when he marched on Moscow? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think it's been a couple months at least.
It has been a couple months.
Yeah. And so Prigozhin, Wagner Group turned around and drove their tanks and armored vehicles straight towards Moscow and claimed they were coming to Moscow to basically make themselves known in a military way. Somewhere along the way, they stood down. I was waiting for Prigozhin to be executed in Red Square. I mean, like up against the wall of the Kremlin, firing squad. Didn't happen. Huh. Everybody's thinking, what the heck? Okay, so let me back up now. What you just have there is a nuclear nation that has a private army, not like the occasional hitman, not like, Black Ops, not like Blackwater that hires, individuals and small groups. No. An independent army working as an arm of the president so he could do what he wanted to do with impunity. Point number one. Point number two, they were fighting on the war front as part of the national effort to take over Ukraine. Oh, so the private army goes where he wants it to go, and they also fight the wars. Number three, the private army then began to march on the Capitol. Can you imagine? I mean, picture if the entire Alabama National Guard decided to mobilize and head towards Washington, D.C. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at a trained combat force with armored vehicles and tanks headed towards the national capital. That happened. They stood down. Then what happened? It got real quiet for a while. There was talk about how things were going to be fine. But this article points out, it's often been said that Vladimir Putin is one who believes that revenge is a dish best served cold. We learned day before yesterday that a plane carrying notorious Russian warlord Yevgeny Prigozhin, who launched a coup against Russian President Vladimir Putin over the summer, reportedly crashed on Wednesday. It didn't crash over Ukraine. It didn't crash over a foreign country. It didn't crash over Africa where Wagner, or Syria where Wagner is also operating. No. It crashed over Russian airspace with 10 people on board. So here's the bottom line. Don't get on a plane with one of Putin's enemies because 10 people lost their lives so that Yevgeny Prigozhin could go down. No one knows for sure. There's been no claim. No one has said, I saw the missile launched, but something happened that took down that plane. And oh, by the way, it didn't go down like in a sort of a dive and just crashed into the earth because they had some kind of equipment failure. We have one report that says witnesses heard a loud bang in the air and the debris field was a mile long. That's not something that happens when a plane begins a nosedive and plows into the ground. No, it blew up in the air. Okay, so statement from the White House. It's been very minimal, by the way. But White House National Security Council spokesperson Adrian Watson said in a statement, "We've seen the reports. If confirmed, no one should be surprised. The disastrous war in Ukraine led to a private army marching on Moscow, and now it would seem to this. The real belief is that Putin went ahead and took him out. Maybe Putin gave him a false sense of security. Here's what I think. This is just Phil. Who am I? But I'm just telling you, here's what I think. Prigozhin had been on the inner circle so long that I guarantee you he had done certain things to protect himself in the event that he ever fell out of favor. I guarantee you he was allowed to live for the last couple of months because Putin had to ensure that he got back whatever evidence he had tucked away. I'm not going to be a bit surprised, though, to find out that there was a open upon my death envelope in some Swiss bank that's going to come out at some point. In the meantime, though, Prigozhin is now done. Putin, in classic Mafia Don fashion, went to a concert. So here's one of his buddies, the head of his private army, to whom he has sent billions of dollars in contracts, who just marched on Moscow in the last couple of months. And Putin, according to the article here from Fox News, made a public appearance at a concert in Russia after the news of the crash had emerged. His press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, told Russian news media that Putin had been informed about Prigozhin and that all necessary measures are being taken, whatever that means. Folks, this is not the behavior of normal countries. This is not the kind of thing that we ever need to see happening with a nuclear nation. But it's happening. And when I get back from this break, I'll tell you more, because now the Wagner boys, some of them are getting their game on, and we'll see how that goes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Hour number 2 on a beautiful but hot Friday afternoon. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international like we're doing right now. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, so let me jump back in. I'm in Dipper number 1, technically, rabid Russia. So I just gave you the layout about who Yevgeny Prigozhin is, why did he matter, what kind of craziness has been happening, who does that? Can you imagine in the United States of America, can you imagine if a private army, tanks and armored vehicles, decided it was ticked off and decided to roll up towards D.C., demanding certain things? That would be like the headline of the century. Well, that's what just happened in Russia. And then the head of Wagner Group, which is the group I'm talking about, the head of Wagner Group, the mercenary army that had been Putin's right-hand dude for going out there and doing all the raping and pillaging he could, the Yevgeny Prigozhin, after staging a near coup and then backing off, was given a couple of months. No one knows why. But now what we're seeing is Yevgeny Prigozhin is now dead. Story here on the crash. Let me get this one first here. I'll do that one instead. Let me grab it real quick. It's another story from Fox. Fox has covered it better than anybody else, really. Russian villagers, it says, who witnessed the crash of the Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin's jet said they heard an explosion before seeing the plane plummet out of the sky. Prigozhin's plane crashed near the village of Kuznenko, and residents say they saw the plane fall from the clouds in at least 2 pieces. One villager emphasized that he had heard a bang or explosion before the plane fell to the ground. CIA Director William Burns, that's our CIA director, warned in late July that Putin was likely biding his time for revenge. He said, "I think what we're seeing is a very complicated dance between Prigozhin and Putin," Burns said. "I think Putin is someone who generally thinks that revenge is a dish best served cold." He said, "I would be surprised if Prigozhin escapes further retribution. In that sense, if I were Prigozhin, I would not fire my food taster." I mean, people who cross Putin wind up getting thrown out of windows. They wind up getting poisoned. How dare you run against me? Do you not know who I am? I am the Russian strongman. And next thing you know, now we've got, and sometimes planes fall from the sky. So the Wagner Group, in a nuclear nation, a private army, is now issuing statements that seem to indicate that not everybody's going to step aside and just be good soldiers. Wagner mercenaries, according to the New York Post, story yesterday afternoon, Wagner mercenaries threaten revenge, march on Moscow after Prigozhin's death. They say, "Expect us." Purported members of the Russian Wagner mercenary group released chilling videos threatening revenge and a new, quote, march of justice on Moscow after their leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, reportedly died in a fiery jet crash. A Telegram channel associated with Prigozhin's private army released a short clip showing a trio of masked men in camouflage and body armor making vague threats of retaliation. Some critics, though, have raised questions about the authenticity of the footage, claiming it might be the handiwork of Ukrainian security forces trying to sow panic in Russia, but there was no concrete evidence to support that theory. In the video, one of the speakers goes on to issue what they call a sinister order to all Wagner units. It says to retrieve their buried assault rifles, machine guns, and grenades, presumably in preparation for an unspecified retaliatory act. They say, quote, "All of us who have fought all these years are seeing the devil has played long enough. Await future orders. Victory will be ours. Glory to Russia." Okay, this is not normal. In the United States, where the FBI decides that parents who speak out at school board meetings are domestic terrorists, we're looking at an actual army in Russia claiming that it's going to go ahead and make themselves known. You will know us. Expect us. But what else is happening? Because, folks, I'm just telling you, Keep your eye on Russia. This is not stable behavior. This is North Korea acts better than this. Story here from CNN. A top Russian general who vanished after Wagner Rebellion fired as the head of aerospace services. So I'm telling you right now, the purge has begun. This story is datelined yesterday. A top Russian general who went missing after the mercenary group Wagner's. He went missing, by the way. No one's seen him in public since June. This is General Sergei Surovkin. He spent 4 decades in the Russian military, including a brief stint running the Russian war effort in Ukraine. He was put in charge of the war in Ukraine in October of 22. He was removed from that post a few months later. He has not been seen in public since June, when he released a video pleading for the Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin to stop his insurrection. But there are some, though, who believe that this guy, Surovkin, may have actually been a part owner in the Wagner Group, experiencing the benefits of its work. And he might have known about the rebellion before it started. And he might have tried to save face when he realized it wasn't going well. And Surovkin is now fired officially from his position, and no one has seen him since June. There was one statement made, one statement. A Russian lawmaker said in July that Surovkin is just resting. Resting. He's just, I see your face, Boomer.
What kind of resting?
Yes, exactly.
Are his eyes like forever closed? I mean, what kind of resting is he?
Check old boy for a pulse is what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Resting since June. The purge has begun. By the way, he's not the only one. There was another general. Where was it here in the article? If I got it, let's see. Yeah, let's see here. There was another Russian general that was also most brutally removed from his position. Yeah, I can't find it, but it's in that article. Now, lastly, or not quite lastly, I'll say this. I mentioned that all this instability and this flux and this strongman activity and this insurrection type activity is happening in a nuclear nation. Headline 2 days ago from realcleardefense.com. Poland's leader says Russia is moving tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus. Okay, if you look at a map, Russia, to its immediate west or the left side on the map, Ukraine. Just above Ukraine, bordering both with Ukraine and Russia, Belarus. Belarus, the leader there is a Putin acolyte. Story here from realcleardefense.com. Poland's president, Andrzej Duda, confirmed on Tuesday, not stated, but confirmed on Tuesday, that Russia has begun shifting some of its short-range nuclear weapons to neighboring Belarus. Why? Proximity to Kiev, I would say. This is me talking now, but I would say proximity to Kiev. It's just north of Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. A move that he said will change the security architecture of the region and the entire NATO military alliance. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg denounced Moscow's rhetoric as dangerous and reckless, said that in July that the alliance has not seen any change in Russia's nuclear posture, but tactical nuclear weapons are a game changer. I'm just telling you, folks, keep your eyes on all of this. Meanwhile, on the world stage, and I'll end with this. Meanwhile, on the world stage, Iran and Saudi Arabia. By the way, you don't usually see Iran and Saudi Arabia written into friendly fashion together anywhere. Iran is Shia Islam, and then Saudi Arabia is Sunni Islam, and they hate each other, generally speaking. But for some reason, there's an organization of developing economies called BRICS. Stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. BRICS has now had the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, Egypt, and Ethiopia, and Iran and Saudi Arabia join them. What they're doing is forming a block of countries designed to get around U.S. sanctions and designed to support each other on the world stage when they know that they are in some way pariahs and not always considered friendly to U.S. interests. So whereas we have the G7 or G8, we have the League of Nations that works together, what we're seeing now is rather than trying to become good actors and join in where they can, China and Russia are heading up a coalition called BRICS that has done nothing except try to begin to move towards circumventing typical world trade and working among themselves. I'm telling you, folks, keep your eyes on this. This ain't small. This is a big, hairy deal. And none of this is normal behavior. None of it. Russia is not a good actor. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back, and I'll probably take some text messages, kick off the topic that we'll be discussing with State Senator Garland Gudger here in a few minutes. Jobs, jobs, jobs. That's what we're going to be talking about. Alabama, how do we rank on the national stage for people wanting to move their businesses here? We'll talk about it and what we can do to help make it better. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, so coming up here in a few minutes, State Senator Garland Gudger, who hails from the Coleman area, will be in studio with us talking about economic development, jobs, and how we can best increase Alabama's posture on the national scene so that we are a true competitor for the best jobs out there. And it's, by the way, it's cutthroat, man. I mean, I used to chair the Committee on Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Development in the state Senate, and which is what Garland Gudger chairs now. And I'll be honest with you, we are constantly in competition. And don't think for a second that this is about corporate welfare and giving things away. No, it's not. It's about making sure that when companies are looking at 3 or 4 or 5 states, that we're the ones that's on top of the list. It's like trying to get Space Command. You're working on trying to get Space Command, and granted, that's a whole different story because politics got into play. But when you're trying to get Space Command here, we're one of a list. And then they have to examine all the things that happen within that list. What do we bring in terms of quality of life? What do we have in terms of a qualified workforce? That means you got to have workforce development. What do you have in terms of location? Are there sites where we could bring a $5 billion plant to do major manufacturing that would have the ability to have rail access, interstate access, all these things does it have the power grid able to support it? What does it take to come there? And then if you've got that, and then 3 other states have that, then it comes down to, okay, which one's better for us? Then they look at things like your school systems for their employees. They look at stuff like what's the economy like in your state. They look at things like a workforce that may or may not be ready but could be quickly trained. And then what other things can you provide? Can you provide things that assist that company with developing their workforce, like training? Do you have the ability then to provide key training and capabilities for them to be able to hire? And then, oh, by the way, there's going to wind up being tax incentives. If you come here, we will abate your taxes for a period of time. If you come here, we will not hand you a check. We're not talking about that. We're talking about doing things like, if you are a productive member of society, then we will abate your taxes. And one of the things that we did when I first came into office, and I know that they've been continuing this trend, is we began to make it a matter of contract. It's not just like a promise made by the governing bodies. No. It's a contract between the state and the company. If you come here or grow here and we give you incentives, then there are milestones you may have to meet, and then we put what's called clawbacks into the contract. Clawbacks are literally saying, if you don't meet the standards, guess what? You have to repay those incentives. So that, to me, is a win-win. I look at this and think, okay, there's a lot of talk about what kind of states can do what, and where does Alabama sit on the overall stage? Well, there's a couple things here. There's what we call site selection. Then there's actual economic incentives, and then there's workforce development. Let's take 3 parts there: site selection, economic incentives, workforce development. Site selection means, like I said a moment ago, do you have locations where we can expand our capabilities? And does it have the capacity for us to begin building now, or do you have to build it and maybe 3 years from now it's done? Well, site selection is a huge deal, y'all. You know, there's only 2, and I'll get into this more detail in a minute. There's only 2, I believe, last I checked, only 2 mega sites, they call them mega sites, that are they're given advantage status by the State Department of Commerce in Alabama. One's in Baldwin County, and one's up here where I live in Etowah County. 1,000 acres, generally speaking, is what they have. All the environmental work has already been done. The power can reach to it. So power and water and other utilities are fully capable and ready to be, turned on. Sometimes rail access can add to it, interstate access can add to it, and all this to say it's there and it's ready. Well, the mega site in Etowah County has been waiting on a tenant now for they've been developing this over time now for a good 10 years. But I really believe that there's probably in the near future going to be something that breaks about that mega site. People talk about when Mercedes came to the state of Alabama. Some get irritated because Mercedes got a big deal. They did get a big deal. Do you know how much Mercedes has meant to the economy of the state? Do you know what has happened with jobs in this state because of Mercedes? Do you know that because Mercedes came here and thrived, that we have now become the Detroit of the South? That auto manufacturing in Alabama with Hyundai and Toyota Mazda and Mercedes and Kia, and then all the tier 2 and 3 manufacturers that go along with them. So it's not like you have one plant and, well, that's cool. In my area, there's a plant that actually supplies the sunroofs and other major parts for the cars at the Mercedes plant. And they do it here and not somewhere else because they work under what's called real-time logistics now, which is way cool. And I'm getting in the weeds, but I'm like geeking on this stuff because real-time logistics means they know they've got X number of cars on the assembly line tomorrow, and they know that of those X number of cars, 32 of them are going to wind up needing sunroofs. And so the factory here in Alabama, in Gadsden area, puts 32 sunroofs in order of how they're going to be installed in a truck, and they roll up to the plant right when those cars are hitting the assembly line, and they come off the truck to the assembly line, no storage necessary. Real-time logistics. It's very cool. Well, why is that important? Because if real-time logistics is the wave of the future, then that means you got to have tier 2 and 3 manufacturers close by. So when a big box plants itself here in the state of Alabama, which is a wonderful thing, the tier 2 and 3s have to be close so they can do real-time logistics. And then we have the Port of Mobile. The Port of Mobile is now one of the best warm water ports in the United States. And that's a huge deal, y'all. What that basically means is major manufacturers can set up in Alabama, which has now been ranked as one of the top site selection states in the nation, manufacture whatever it is they make, and roll it down the road to the Port of Mobile and get it wherever it has to go in the world. We have got to stay on top of that, and that's why we're going to talk about economic incentives and how best we can grow this state to be competitive on the national market. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful state in the nation. I'm talking about Alabama. I love this state. I mean, this show sends its signal like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia and Tennessee, and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, listen, I got to tell you, by the way, you hear the ads playing during the break. Just know this. Rightside Radio, we are a standalone business. We're actually a 501c3. But we are a standalone entity. We have to have our own revenue streams to be able to support what we do. We're not owned by the radio stations you hear us on. We send them our show. And so in order to sustain that, one of the ways we do it is by selling ads. And so if you would like to advertise your business on Rightside Radio, you don't call the station, you call us directly. I mean, think about it. You're sitting there thinking, golly, these guys got it going on. Best show on the radio. And oh, by the way, they think like I think, talk like I talk. I want my business to be aligned with them. We'd love to talk to you. So yeah, just go ahead and go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. All the stuff about our show is on there. But you can also find a place that says advertising and contact at rightsideradio.org. Click on it, send us a message. We will get back to you right away. We'd love to talk to you about advertising with the show. All right, so I am back in. I know that Senator Gudger got held up by a family situation, and he is almost here, so we'll just keep talking until he arrives. But I will say this. One of the things that people don't realize is out there is a thing called AIDT. AIDT is actually very cool. I became aware of it when I was in the Senate. AIDT is like sort of like the ace in the hole when it comes to being able to recruit industry to the state. And AIDT, what it basically does, and I'm trying to think what AIDT stands for, but I'll think of it here in a second. But AIDT literally is an organization in the state that will help train your people to do the jobs that a new plant or an expanding plant needs to do. So as you see things happening in the state of Alabama, just know this. Part of what we've got is not only great site selection, we've got great economic incentives, we've got great people that can do workforce development, but a part of that workforce development is an organization called AIDT. I'm fist bumping right now with State Senator Garland Gudger, who's walking in the door. Listen, man, I know you've had a day, and I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but I know you've had a day. So thank you very much for being here. How are you?
I'm great, sir. How are you doing?
I am good enough.
I'm glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, it's been a little while anyway.
By the way, it just dawned on me, you chair FRED, the Committee on Fiscal. That was my committee.
It gets weirder.
Okay.
I chair FRED.
Yeah.
I have your old office.
No.
And Holly was my secretary, which
No.
was your secretary. Yes. And so I felt like I'm in your shoes is what I really feel like anyway. So walking back in here, you're kind of like the original gangster, the OG, right? And so I'm coming back here to talk. I like it.
Come on in. I'll make you a deal you can't refuse.
I like it.
Well, hey, I know you've had a day. You just drove in from Coleman. You serve in Senate District 4, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
You are correct.
Been there since 2018.
That is correct.
And you are a small business guy yourself. And weren't you also in the city council or county commission? What did you do before you ran for
city council? I was the youngest city councilman in the history of Coleman City.
Oh.
Went in 2004. I was 27 years old, a long time ago. And then from that, I stayed for 4 years, and everyone that I ran with, including the mayor and my clerk, either got beat, they retired, or they passed away, and I was the only man standing in 2008. So everyone was looking at me for answers. I was like, man, I've got a lot to learn. So I learned through just throwing myself into the middle of the briar patch and just learning. And so, trying to do what's right. And so for the next 12 years, or probably really next 10 years, I was city council president. And so learning the budgets and learning how everything functioned on the city government style. So I think it gave me a good base to run for Senate.
So everybody looked around and realized the only guy who knew where the bones were buried is you.
Yeah, exactly. They all got scared of me a little bit.
Hey, we're going to talk about economics and economic incentives. And you carried, not only did you chair FRED, but you carried the transparency bill in our economic package this past session.
I did.
And then supported the SEEDS Act, which we'll talk about in a minute. Mm-hmm. Before we do that, though, I just got to say, you actually have one of the coolest businesses that my wife has spent too much money in.
You let her come back anytime she wants to. Yeah.
So for those that don't know, over in Coleman, there's this very cool place, Southern Accents.
Architectural antiques.
Yes. And I mean, you guys salvage stuff all over the nation, right?
We do. We salvage from Brooklyn to Oklahoma to Pittsburgh to Philadelphia.
So there's you know this, but there's There's a newel post on my staircase in my house. There's glass transoms, and there's a stained glass double doors on our pantry, all of which came from your place.
Oh, I remember those. They were nice. Yeah, I love those, man. You know, some of those pieces I hate to see leave because, you know, you get kind of like your kids because you love them, right? And but I'm glad they went to good use, and you're able to enjoy those every day. But we travel. My father started the business out of his garage in 1969, and then I just grew up in that business. You know, so if something happened, I would still just do it again. I mean, it's really what's in my blood, and I enjoy salvaging and enjoy historic preservation.
So one day I'm sitting there on a Saturday morning, and I'm watching American Pickers.
Yeah,
I'm watching American Pickers. And I looked at it and I went, wait a minute.
I know that.
And I texted you on the phone and I said, I just saw Mike Wolf from American Pickers wearing a Southern Accents T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
So you done stuff with American Pickers guys?
We talk on a weekly basis. Mike
Do you
and I
really?
do, yeah. So anytime they have architectural salvage, and especially in the Southeast, he'll call me and say, hey, I've got this. Let's switch something out, or work with me. He does a lot of flipping of properties, and also we work with him a lot. But on that, we worked on his own house, his own motorcycle garage. We're doing a lot of stuff up in Columbia, Tennessee for him right now. And I was on the show with him. And so he did the only show ever, which I'm proud of, that he did a show that was not just on picking. It was about salvaging a house. He called me and said, I need your help on this show. And I said, that's fine, I'll help. I took my whole crew to Bettendorf, Iowa, got up there, thought that I was just going to be in the background. He said, oh, no, you're my main guy with me. And I'm like in the middle, and I did interviews with it just like I was Frank or somebody, you know, his partner. But it worked out really well, and his national exposure. So it kind of helped boost our little small business into even a higher level. So I was proud of that.
Well, and I will say, too, and I feel like I'm just giving you all this free advertising, but it's just because it's one of my favorite places. But your location in downtown Coleman, old downtown Coleman, in the old streets, it's one of those places you can go and ramble through, and every time I go, I see something I didn't see before.
And every day we get new things in. We try to make it worth someone's drive to our store, because I know we're in Coleman, Alabama, which is centrally located, but we have a map that shows people from about a 3-hour radius that's consistently come to our store. So if someone's going to drive 3 hours or less to our store, I want to make sure I have the selection that they need so it was worth their while. And so while they're there, I've got 4,000 doors. I've got 250 fireplace mantles. I've got 500,000 board feet of lumber now. I mean, so if you want architectural salvage, vintage wood, antique doors, I'm the biggest in the Southeast.
Well, and y'all did I've got these. So we built our house, and you know that's how we incorporate these pieces into it. But we actually, I got these super tall. They're like 9 foot tall doors that I don't know where they came from, that are going to my study, but y'all actually kind of cleaned them up and put glass in because a lot of the panes were missing. Yeah. So y'all do you do finish work too.
What the difference in our store, I feel like in most other salvage stores nationwide, is that we have a restoration shop, and the restoration shop has 4 guys in there that have studied carpentry, carving, sculpting, anything that you need to do. So if I needed to carve your face in a door, my guys seriously could do it. But we put frames on the doors, we add glass, we put old hardware or new hardware, and anything you can think of. We strip and sand a lot of the paint off of the newel post and the doors also. But we're really kind of a one-stop shop if you're looking for architectural salvage. We had to quit doing other people's material because we got so far behind. There was a need for it. We had to just say, if you buy something here, we're going to fix it up. But if we can't do it, if you don't buy it here, because people were trying to bring us some other doors they bought, like in Texas, and that was fine for a while. But we're at a point now where we're growing, and so I've got to just take care of the people that are coming in our front door.
Yeah, and then if you just need to root through bins of brass doorknobs from 1882, they're there
exactly.
too.
That's fine. It's like a museum. I mean, my dad said this looks like, if I have an analogy, it would be Home Depot, but in 1882. So when somebody walked in, that's what you would see is our store, but doorknobs and light fixtures and wall sconces and more doors, and then newel posts and staircasing and bathtubs and pedestal sinks and
All right, before we go to the break, what's the craziest thing you've ever sold to somebody out of your place?
Oh my gosh. The first thing, I'm going to tell you the first thing I sold, which was kind of crazy, but it was a marble mantle from Atlanta in one of these large structures that were being torn down. And the first thing I purchased and sold was a $17,000 mantle back in 1999. And obviously that got me hooked really quick. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. But I restored it. Took it to their house. We installed it with Gardner Stone down in Birmingham, Alabama, into this house in Mountain Brook, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I said, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life for sure. And so from that, I could walk through the fireplace opening. It was so big, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, listen, we got State Senator Garland Gudger, hails out of the Coleman area. He's actually a business owner himself. Southern Accents is his company. You ought to check it out. In the meantime, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back from this break, and we're going to dive right back into what I was talking about before he walked in the door. Jobs, jobs, jobs. How do you put jobs in place? How do you create the environment where businesses want to expand or bring themselves for the first time? What do you got to have? Well, you got to have site selection, workforce development, economic incentives, all of it. And where we start, State Senator Garland Gudger. We'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I mean, I'm talking about making common sense a superpower. Listen, we're back in studio right now with State Senator Garland Gudger, hails out of Senate District 4 over in Coleman. All right, my brother, you listen, you chair fiscal responsibility and economic development. We lovingly call it FRED. And that would be, all right, that's on, bud. Hang on a second. We got a mic problem. Let's go ahead and take a look, just real quick. Talk again. Test. We got nada. What'd you do? Did you break my mic? Did you turn that off?
I flipped it and turned it off. Oh, I was looking at Boomer like it was his fault. Any technical issue, it was my fault. I'm sorry about that, buddy.
How about we just turn it on? That'll work real good. Anyway, so all right, sitting in the studio. Let's try it again with State Senator Garland Gudger. All right, listen, man, you chair FRED, Fiscal Responsibility Economic Development. This past year wound up being a huge focus. I mean, econ development, big deal. And I've been telling the audience, 3 major things. You got to have site selection, you got to have workforce development, you got to have economic incentives.
That's right.
So this past year, there was a huge push and a renewal and a sort of a revamping of the SEEDS Act, site selection stuff. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, the site selection is the State Industrial Development Authority or agency, and that was a George Wallace era when it was created. Our job was to put about $2 million in there per year. Over the years, we really didn't use that. It was really just kind of a vehicle that we'd run some bonds through. From those bonds, we'd try to get different sites, but we've never utilized to its full potential. So we started looking at what are we in Alabama needing to do in today standards of where economic development is and who we're competing against. And that is using that particular board, which was already set up for that many years, but actually funding it the way it needs to be funded, because all of our competitors, which is our surrounding states,
right,
are definitely doing that. They're doing 4 or 5 times what we're doing per year. So this was the first time we put significant dollars into that particular agent, into that Industrial Development Board. And then from that, we're going to take that money, and then we're going to have grants that are going to be there for all the county commissions, industrial development boards, city councils, and mayors. And so from that, there'll be rules that we're setting up now. There are going to be applications that will be lined out. Our friends at EDPA, Greg Barker, is setting all of that up for us for the Department of Commerce. That all should be handled by the end of this year. And starting next year, that money will start flowing back into the community so that we can get sites prepped and ready, so that utilities even could be brought to it. So there will be ready-to-go sites. So when industries are looking for sites, we have them on a map and ready to go.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think I ever had a clue until I actually got into the same position you're in right now in the Senate, as to how much goes into site prep. It's not just a matter of we're going to level the trees and then put a sign out front that says build to suit. It doesn't work that way.
No, not at all.
There's going to be environmental impact studies. There's going to be economic impact studies. There's going to be, you know, whether the utilities are there and ready to turn on. And then there's going to be rail and highway access.
Exactly.
Do you have to build a flyaway over the interstate to allow an exit ramp on a major plant? Yeah. I mean, it's on and on and on.
But without those utilities, you're going to hear over and over again, you know, that's a beautiful piece of land, but it's just dirt until you have utilities ran to it, then you have something. And so we're making sure that we have the full package so that these larger industries are going to be attracted to Alabama. And
there was a day back in the day when they used to say that if you build it, they will come when it comes to those kind of sites, where the utilities would go out first and then hope to lure a client. But the reality is even Alabama Power, Spire Gas, or whoever else is going to run those utilities, local water, they kind of got to know they have a customer coming before they invest in the infrastructure. So there's this balancing act of trying to get the site prep done, utilities stopped out, but do they really bring it all the way in? It's a balancing act.
You know, and it's kind of like if you looked at an analogy just in the simple terms of, are we needing a fire hose of water, you know, to set that up? Or we need a garden hose of water? Or do we need a fire, what do you call them, corners?
The hydrant?
Hydrant, yeah. Do we need a full hydrant? You know, so the thing is, how much water flow do we need? How much power do we need? What is going to be the use of this land? Because if we just brought as much of the maximum capacity of each of our industries and utilities to that site, it might be overkill. And so there is a balancing act to find out what's going to be coming there as quick as we can to make sure that we have the correct utilities that are going to be associated with that particular jobs and industry.
Well, in Alabama, and unless something's changed, and I don't track it as much as I used to, obviously, but unless something's changed, there's only 2 mega sites. There's one here in Etowah County. There's one in Baldwin County.
Right.
1,000 acres, everything ready, already got the advantage stamp on it from the Department of Commerce. But it doesn't mean that you can't use this Seeds Act then to also assist the smaller communities with an industrial park or with something that could bring smaller industry in tomorrow.
That is correct. There's going to be some limitations of how much a smaller industry and a smaller park can get through that grant program. Obviously, if you had 2,000 acres somewhere like Novella's site that was in Baldwin County you're talking about that took that site, you're going to have more money you can pour in there because they're going to need that. If you're looking at a 50-acre site, then that's going to be a little bit, obviously, less money, so they're not going to need as much. So there's going to be some type of tier levels where you're going in. You have to meet this quality first of this many acres, and then it goes from there and goes to the through the sky as far as how much money you can put into one of the mega sites. The key is finding a mega site. And again, we have two. One just got taken from Novella's, aluminum stamping.
Right.
So really, we only have one.
Yeah.
Right, in Etowah County.
Could you bring something to it, please?
Yeah, exactly. Help recruit it.
While we're here, let's make some news. Breaking, Etowah County. No, So the reality is too. There's so many nuances that go into this, and in a minute we're gonna come back from our break, and I want to talk about some of the myths around economic development. There was a day when they used to throw cash at things. We don't throw cash anymore.
No.
And we put some things in place while I was in office that you guys are perpetuating now that require clawbacks on contracts, that require jobs to be produced to a certain milestone, and that put timelines on these businesses. And we also, by the way, have to talk about who's already here. It's not just about trying to bring in the new industry from the outside. How about we take care of who's been a good tenant, and we're making sure that we're giving them the options for expansion as much as we're talking about bringing in new competition.
The existing industries are just as important, if not more, than trying to recruit new ones. And I've learned that just over my years of economic development from city council to the Senate now. But there's plenty of people that are already here that want to expand. We need to be helping them also.
All right, we're in the studio right now with State Senator Garland Gudger, hails out of Coleman. He's currently chairing the Committee on Fiscal Responsibility, Economic Development, which we lovingly call FRED, down in the Alabama State Senate. And we're talking about economic development, site selection, workforce development, economic incentives. How do you do it? And then how do you do it right? Because in the end, this is also still working with the taxpayer's dollar. And I'll tell you right now, there was a day when they used to just sling money. It didn't always work out well, like an old rail car construction plant that never really happened in North Alabama back in the day. But what we're looking at now is a matter of contract, a matter of putting it together in a way that is responsible, proficient, and also, by the way, draws in clientele. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios, man. We got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So sitting here in studio with State Senator Garland Gudger, who represents the District 4 out of the Coleman area, chairs the Committee on Fiscal Responsibility, Economic Development. There's an article on Yellowhammer News. This is an old one that came out back in September of last year. But this was Greg Canfield, who's our Secretary of Commerce for the state. And he was talking about the Jobs Act and the incentives that y'all also renewed this past session. And he said that since 2015, which is when we put them in place, the Alabama Jobs Act's incentives have allowed us to attract over $17 billion in new investment and create 34,000 jobs from just under 200 projects from 2015 through 2021. So I guess here's my point in this. And I get it, because there were some irresponsible things done in the past. But there's a tendency sometimes for conservatives to believe you can't do economic incentive. That's a corporate welfare. You can't just give away. We're not giving away money. First of all, look at the return on the investment we just got here. But the second thing is we've also restyled the way it's all done, part of which is your transparency bill from this past year.
Right, yeah. So the transparency bill is something that was dear and near to my heart, for the fact of, as a small business person, I have to watch every dollar that leaves my store, right? If I make some bad investments, or I make something go astray as far as money, I'm negatively affected dramatically. Now, from that, it's the same way at the state level. We put out the incentives program, but from that, I want to know that the public tax dollars are being used the way they're supposed to be, as efficiently as possible. And then also, I would like to know where they're going to make sure we get a return on our investment, right? And so that's just the same way with my small business. So I started talking to people about the transparency, and what we were going to do is just put it on a website and it was going to be fine. I added a part of the transparency bill to that to say, listen, I want a joint board that is going to be Senate and House to come together, that's focused just on economic incentives, and then they can have a third party verify the numbers to make sure that the Department of Commerce, that those numbers you just read are as good as what they're saying, which they always have been. It's just nice when we're able to verify and take that to the general public, so they can say, not only are they telling us this, right, the Department of Commerce that is doing the job and telling us what the numbers are, but we've also had a third party that we chose to make sure those numbers are verified. So that way, we're having a small group that comes together, some of the budget chairs in the House and the Senate, some of the economic developers from the House and the Senate, and that particular board has made transparency go further than it's ever been before. So the people can get on a website now, madeinalabama.com, and they can look at each project that they were just talking about in that Yellowhammer article, and from that they can see what the return on investment is, how many jobs were created, the capital outlay, everything that they need to know about is our tax dollars working for us. And so we're one of the first ones, if not the first in the nation, to be able to do this at the level that we're doing it, so the general public can look and see that for themselves. The thing about this is, now, we do not dangle this incentives and this carrot out in front of them to give them money back or these incentives. They have to invest and have to be here for a year before they get this money. So a lot of people don't realize that, saying you're giving them money just to get here, then they're going to leave in 6 months. Well, they can. They won't get the incentives. They have to be here for a year. They have to build with brick and mortar. They have to produce the jobs. They have to do the capital outlay. They have to buy the equipment, run the utilities to their structures. From then, after a year, then they get the incentives. And I think that is the best way to do that, to make sure that we're fiscally responsible.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things we added, I mentioned earlier in the show, that we added that was not in place until 2015-ish, thereabouts, was what we call them clawbacks. And that's where there's a matter of contract. It's not like a handshake, hey, good luck, fellas, hope the plant works well. No, it's a contract with the state. All those things you just listed, being here for a certain amount of time, creating a certain number of jobs, hitting a certain number of revenue points and investment levels, and all that to say, if you don't do it, there's a part of that contract. It's called a clawback that says that we will claw back any incentives you've received if you don't produce like you said you would.
And they are doing that, and I know that for a fact. I had a company that was in my actual district that just went and they did the numbers differently than they should to get the full amount of their incentives for the last 2 years. And I went and talked to Greg Canfield, the director directly, Secretary Greg Canfield at the Department of Commerce, and he said, listen, we have certain rules. We told them to look at this before they turned it in. They didn't last year, and this year they still have time. But last year I can't go back. This is what it is on paper, and those are our rules, and we're sticking with it. So he was protecting the public tax dollars that were invested earlier. But there was already a clawback even in my own district about that.
Yeah.
And I think that was. I hate to say I was happy to see that, but I know that he's doing his job on the clawbacks, and I think the clawbacks are crucial for anything going forward. And I commend my predecessors, including yourself, that put that in.
Well, I appreciate that. Going back to the transparency piece too, I love the fact. So I'm a small business guy. A law firm is a business, so I have a law firm. We do a lot of real estate work. A few years ago, it was a little frustrating. I've been doing real estate for close to 17 years at that point, and all of a sudden I had to prove that I could still do it. And they call it ALTA best practices, and we had to get all kinds of external things in place. One of which was we have to have third-party audits.
Right.
And but that's exactly what you're talking about with that transparency piece. Is an outsider having to come in to provide validation on the facts that are being presented.
One of the things, exactly what you just said is exactly right. One of the things that we wanted to focus on was that the person that is telling us the information is not the same person that was supposed to be producing the information, because you see that in government a lot. Let me tell you what I did for this year, but then no one verifies their numbers. And this is a way for the state legislature to say, we're going to verify your numbers to make sure that they're there. And if they're not, we'll figure out where the discrepancy is and go forward. But all that does is protect the public tax dollars that are coming in and that we're putting out a year later after our industry comes. But it's the right thing to do. There is no doubt about it.
And I was going from memory. Maybe you recall this from your time when it would have been back in your city council days. But there was some rail car plant that was going to be built in North Alabama, and it may have been up near it may have been up near your district. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but it was a total boondoggle. I mean, basically, old way of doing things under Democrat control. They threw money on top of something that never materialized, and the investment was just gone.
And the investment was gone. That was the key. And that's
you remember that?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. And it's happened over and over again in local communities. And I'm talking about small towns just as well as urban communities, right? And so over the years, I think Alabama has gotten smart, making sure that the clawbacks are in there, making sure that we're not giving all the incentives up front, or if any incentive up front, they have to produce first. And then once they produce, then we're going to give them their money. It's just like a business transaction. So if I'm going to produce a service for you, I'm going to produce that service. A plumber comes to your house to fix your pipes or whatever, there's a leak. He's going to produce that service first, and then you're going to write him a check at the end. And that's what the state of Alabama is doing now. Instead of saying, well, how much do you think this will be? It's only going to be $1,500, but why don't you give me $10,000 instead, and I'll just make sure it's covered. And they would write him a check for that back in the good old days. That's not the way that it happens anymore.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're about to take another break, and then when we come back from that, if we can, I want to talk about some workforce development issues, what Alabama can do, and then if you got any insights on how we stand up on the national stage. I mean, it ain't like Georgia's sitting still, it ain't like Virginia's sitting still. They're trying to compete with what we're trying to do, and they're trying to grab hold of it, and basically it's a constant level of competition.
Exactly what it is.
All right, man. Listen, we're with State Senator Garland Gudger. We're going to take a break right now. We'll come back from this break, and then we'll kind of wrap up our discussion on economic development. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper for the day. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, we've been talking about jobs, because I'll be honest with you, the economy, we're still in the rebound off of COVID. We're still looking at how do we become more and more the state where people want to locate their businesses and grow their businesses. And I mentioned earlier site selection. So I'm sitting here in studio with State Senator Garland Gudger. He's from Cullman, State Senate District 4. He chairs the Committee on Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Development. He's a businessman himself out of Cullman. By the way, I got to pause. Before I go any further, you just told me during the break earlier that one of your guys in the wood shop has has Rightside Radio on every day. So I'm giving a shout out right now to Roger in the wood shop.
He's going to be ecstatic when he hears that. That's great. Thanks,
Roger in the wood shop. We appreciate you, brother. And I am sending you a Rightside Ruffian T-shirt, by the way.
That's awesome.
Don't let your boss keep it. I gave it to him for you. So,
definitely.
All right, but listen, man. So aside from site selection, aside from the incentives we talked about, and the fact that, I mean, some people want to say, it's corporate welfare. You can't do that. We're not picking winners and losers. They still got to come here and do the thing and compete. But then we also got to have people to work. The labor force participation in Alabama right now kind of sucks.
Terrible.
Unemployment is good, but the labor force participation is the indicator that people are not all getting back in the market.
And they're not trying to.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. And that number is staggering if you don't realize the difference in those two anyway, because unemployment is one thing where people are looking for jobs, but if they're looking, they can find a job. And so that number is pretty low. But workforce participation is the numbers that we're looking at now in the Senate, saying those are the jobs or the people that are not even getting off their couch to go look for jobs anymore, and that number is continuing to grow higher instead of lower.
Yeah,
and that bothers everyone. Obviously, how do we get those people motivated to get out? But it's a multiple of things, from people looking at social media and say, I'm just going to find a side hustle that's on Instagram or something like that, versus I don't want to go work to a 9-to-5 job anymore. Where do I get my freedom if I want to go to a job? I don't want to stay there and be chained to a desk. I want to be doing something different, which is understandable if you can do that. But the key is we need people out with skills that are being trained to be able to do high quality, state-of-the-art processes and techniques for these industries that are coming in. And right now, there's not the pipeline that we used to have full of people coming out saying, I want to do this, for the next 20 years. It's just not there.
Which takes creativity, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The part of the job of the legislature is not to pick the winners and losers, is to set the environment for which economic development can occur. And I think that's the difference here. But one of the things that we did back when I was in, and I was proud to carry the bill, it was my bill, was a dual enrollment bill. I mean, we have kids right now, because of that bill, who are able to be in high school and dually enrolled in a tech school, like at a community college level. And just to throw out an example here, you can graduate from high school and to get your welding certificate at the exact same time and go to work down in the boatyards at Austell shipbuilders down in Mobile, making $60 an hour.
Oh, I mean, my brother-in-law is a perfect example of that. When that dual enrollment bill came out, he ended up going to high school, going to Wallace State Community College in Hanceville, learning how to do pipe fitting and any type of machining to help with that. Came out, he was going to went ahead and got a certification for a 2-year after he got out of high school, and went straight into the workforce. Fast forward, 16, 17 years later, he's making more money than I've ever thought about making as a plumber and as a pipe fitter. And he's never gone to a 4-year, get a 4-year degree or to a university. He just went straight to the technical school, learned a trade, used his hands every day. And it's amazing what they're making right now. But we need more and more of that as we go forward.
And then sometimes it gets specialized. So back to the economic development piece, we have a thing here in the state of Alabama called AIDT. And AIDT, along with another one called ATN, the Alabama Technology Network, one of those incentives that we can apply is say, hey, we have this organization, and if you want to bring your plant here and it does, say, robotic manufacturing, or you need people that are AutoCAD trained, or whatever the case may be, we can give you a training material to help you get that ready and do it.
Exactly. That's going to be custom made just for them. And that's the greatest thing about it, is they're partnering. And so by partnering, they're saying this is the exact type of robotic welding that I need, because there's multiples that I found. And so from that, they're able to partner with these schools, partner with the students. And then from that, they're able to get exactly the student that has now turned into a professional, leaving that university or technical school, going straight into their industry. And they've already been trained over that 2-year period because they've partnered with the technical school school. They've partnered with through the high school. They've partnered with any type of university, and that workforce development is crucial for the dual enrollment. And I'm thankful that I didn't know that you were the one that sponsored that, but it's a blessing because there's so many kids that are in Coleman. My niece is one of them right
no
now.
kidding.
Yeah, she's 16, just turning 17. She is a junior at Coleman High School, and she now works for the gentleman I just told you about, the pipe fitter, works in their office half a day. And so it's amazing she
How
does
about
that. Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, listen, man. I mean, people don't realize to the extent that this is a cutthroat thing. I mean, I mentioned earlier that Georgia and Virginia are not sitting still. They're looking at, if they see Alabama put something in place, they're like, well, we got to do ours.
Oh, yeah.
And then next thing you know, site selection. I mean, I got one of my articles here in my stack. We were listed as being number 6 in the nation for site selection. Just by one of the major periodicals in the fall of last year. So that being said, there's somebody else that's number 7 is like, what do we got to do to be number 6?
Exactly. It's a competitive market no matter what happens. The jobs are the key to the whole lineup of how we, as the state of Alabama, is going to go and proceed of getting people from the schools, learning the trades, moving into the industries, producing jobs, and producing, what we need in Alabama to be the best that we possibly can be for the best quality of life. I think that as we go forward, without having everybody on the same page and continuing to work our rear ends off in the Senate to have the legislative part of it to be ready to go for anything that's happening with AIDT, especially as our partner, and learning what they need and funding them the proper way, then we're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Well, I mean, so the bottom line is this. Alabama's a great place to work. It's a great place to raise your kids. Property taxes are low here. You can actually set up shop and do some things. You can expand a business. You got, you got some of the finest football in the nation. You got everything from mountains and lakes to white sandy beaches, but you still got to give them a reason to come. And I look at this a lot like selling a car. If I was down to 2 vehicles I wanted to buy, I guarantee you the dealerships are going to have dealer rebates. They're going to have sales. They're going to have incentives. They're going to try and give me the proper deal. I'm going to be able to talk to them and tell them I need a little more to do this because the trade-in value is not enough. And it's really no different when a state is doing that compared to other states trying to draw in new business or grow existing business.
Exactly. And in the end, it's a quality of life, right? If that particular car dealer you just gave that an analogy of is the one that sells it, then they've produced that sale. They've got probably a relationship that they can build off of and maybe get their daughters or sons' cars from there on out, and they're going to come back to the same place. And it grows. Not only do we need to make sure that these site selections that we were talking about are funded, that we have multiple throughout the state. And as you said earlier, we only have 1 mega site. We need more than that, but also we need smaller sites for tier 2 and tier 3 industries that are coming in. Then you move from the sites, you move over to the people, to the career tech, to make sure that they are trained for the state-of-the-art technologies that is happening in all of these industries now. It's not like it used to be where it's dirty and you can't see when the steel production. It is all clean and it's electrical. And from that, as we go forward, we've got to have the right sites, the right people, and we've got to be competitive in the legislature for the incentives.
All right, brother. Well, listen, every once in a while I miss exactly what you're doing, but I'm glad you're there doing it.
Well, thank you.
Sometimes I miss it.
Yeah.
A lot of times I don't. Anyway, State Senator Garland Gudger from the Coleman area, Senate District 4, been serving since 2018, now currently the chairman of Fiscal Responsibility Economic Development. Brother, we appreciate you. And
Thank you.
Southern accents.
That's it. Coleman, Alabama.
Yeah, check it out. And many thanks to Roger in the woodshop.
No doubt. He's going to be tickled.
All right, listen, folks, we're going to come right back. We're going to take some text messages and catch up on some of those because I can see they've stacked up on my screen over here. In the meantime, y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Tuscaloosa back to Gadsden. Parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And according to what we just heard, also in Coleman. I love the fact that he's sitting there going, yeah, man, Roger in my wood shop has you on every day. That's just way cool. We appreciate it, too. Hey, listen, I got to say, somebody else that covers down on some major ground is Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care, chain of clinics that is throughout North Alabama. And, I mean, listen, this is who I use personally, all right? And I mean that. This is who I use personally in the Gadsden area. They got locations in Gadsden, Attala, Anniston, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. The 2 newest ones are in Chelsea and Hoover. I hear there's more coming. But Southern Immediate Care, I know the owner of the entire chain. What an amazing guy. And they're always so clean. The staff is incredibly friendly and proficient when I go in. I never feel like my time's being wasted. And they're open 7 days a week, y'all. You wake up on a Saturday morning, the kid's got a fever. What do? Well, Southern Immediate Care could be available to you. Just look up online, find the location nearest to you, and I guarantee you'll be glad you did. Southern Immediate Care, all throughout northern Alabama. And if you go in for the first time, by the way, or even the second or third time, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, listen. The text messages just blew up. But I am a little bit jealous. Oh, thank you. I did not. That totally caught me off guard. I thought my headphones had blown. I didn't know what was going on. Jeff from Indiana is in the Smoky Mountains, and that's great. Even sent us a picture, bud. You see the picture yet? Jeff from Indiana, he and his sweet wife. Jeff, you married up, man. You just married up. But Jeff from Indiana is in the Smoky Mountains with his wife and friends celebrating their 39th wedding anniversary. It's awesome. Well, I'm right behind you, brother. I'm coming up on 37. So congrats to you, Jeff from Indiana, and your sweet bride. Let's see what else we got here. Mike from Muscle Shoals. It's common for high school seniors to graduate from JUCO before they graduate from high school. Yeah, but not as common as you might think. And what we did was we put this thing in place. I think he's talking about the dual enrollment bill that I had. That's not always been available. A lot of times in the past, you actually had to have a high school degree before you could enroll in a 2-year college. And so this gives them the ability to enroll in the tech side of junior college while they're still enrolled in high school and gain that technical. I mean, the trades are short of people, right? I mean, everything's short of people. But the trades especially are short on people. And that dual enrollment bill has been one of the coolest things I got a chance to be a part of as a senator. Kenneth from Somerville, he just jumped in and says, Joe Biden just made a statement that he watched the GOP debate, but it was all just a bunch of talk. Well, that's what debates are. And he ends it by saying, duh. Well, there you go. I also saw that it's kind of classless, but what else do you expect? They did catch Biden today and say, have you seen President Trump's mugshot? And he laughed. First thing he did was he laughed.
Well, there you go.
There you go. And then
that says a lot.
And then he said, he's a handsome guy. Okay. Can we accuse him of having a man crush? Is that possible? He laughed. I can't believe he laughed. Mike from Muscle Shoals just texted back in and says, that's what I mean. I was bragging on you. Oh, thank you, brother. I wasn't trying to correct you. I was just kind of clarifying the record. But I appreciate Mike from Muscle Shoals. Thanks much, man. I appreciate you. Tony from Piedmont. He says, I don't know what he's saying here. There's no reason to thank us because we don't exist. You never saw us. This never happened. Okay. Said it applies to fast attack submarines too. Oh, he says the reason why the Wagner Group didn't make it to Mexico, no logistics. You know how far you can go. Well, okay, that's the point. He's talking about my first dipper. I'm getting the sense, Boomer, that it may be a 2-dipper day.
It may be.
I just kind of feel
all right.
It's okay. They were
It's
good.
Friday too.
They were some good darn dippers, and I had a mini dipper in there.
Yeah, and you had a guest.
And I had a guest. Dadgum. Darlene from Decatur. Speaking of jobs and big companies, the Dakin Company in Decatur is so grateful to the city of Decatur that they threw a big party for the entire city. The Dakin Japanese Festival in May. It's all free for anyone who shows up, free food, kids' activities, dancing, etc. Dakin also contributed to Decatur by establishing a Japanese garden and also built an amphitheater. Dakin has donated new books to the library and donated many things to Decatur City Schools. That's cool. You know, that's the thing. When you've got, one of the things that we put in place, you know, there used to be a move to, incentives were always to attract new business. Incentives were always to attract new business, just new business, all the new business. Well, what about the good citizen companies that are here now, like Dakin? And And that's very cool. Darlene, thank you for that. So we put things in place. You can now have incentives for the purpose of expansion. In other words, we want you to continue being a good neighbor here with us, and we're going to do all we can to make it for you. Rex from Huntsville. What are we saying? Oh, he says he used Gudger's place. He says, we use garlands to strip paint from an old fireplace mantles that were made in 1913 so we could use them in our new house. Pretty special because they were in my great-grandfather's house we had to demolish. Great work by their folks. That's cool. That's very cool. I'm telling you, Boomer.
I like that.
You need to go over there and check it out.
I don't need to go. I may go. I don't need to take my wife.
I was about to say. leave the... Oh, honey, I forgot the debit card.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
I don't know.
next time.
How'd that happen? I never travel without that. And there's a place over there, I'm trying to think the name of it. It's not Wildflower Cafe. That was in Mentone. But there's a couple of neat little cafes in downtown, too, right around the corner from Gudger's.
It's been a while since I've been over to Coleman area.
Coleman's worth a trip. It's worth a trip. Lisa from Huntsville. Both fireplace mantles in our house came from Southern Accents and Coleman. They were old wooden. They were old and wooden. They were gorgeous. Glad. See, this is cool. John from Huntsville. When somebody says jobs, 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 all I hear is money, money, money. Well, as long as there's money coming into the economy, John, we're all good, brother. Jeremy from going back a little bit. Peg Leg Dave. I met Peg Leg. I tell you, I met Peg Leg Dave the other night.
You did.
I did.
You met a lot of people the other night.
That was very cool. Peg Leg Dave texted in a little while ago talking about old boy, the Russian general that no one's seen since June. He says, I think old boy's taking a dirt nap. Probably right. Jeremy from Huntsville. Sounds like Axis Power is talking about the BRICS groups, the Brazil, who is that? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, now seeing UAE, Iran, and Saudi Arabia joining. I can't believe I just named all that, but that's. Are you impressed? I'm rather impressed.
I was like, man, you're just naming them all off.
I just looked up at the sky and began to name them.
It's all in my brain.
But those are a bunch of bad actors, some of them anyway, and yeah, sounds like Axis Powers, he says. A couple more and then we'll take a break. Brian from Huntsville texted way back in. He says, I don't know what he means. The Don McLean American Pie twisted version. I don't know what that means. Brian, you may have to clarify for us because we're totally lost in what you meant. And then David from Huntsville says, there's two Davids from Huntsville. I was the original. Okay, he's the OG David. OG David is David from Huntsville. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now, about a minute or two early. We'll come back from this, see what other kind of text messages and things y'all got for me. We'll take them, and then we'll close out the day for a Friday, because that's what it is. You are at the weekend, my friends, and it's go home time. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right, making common sense a superpower. Hey, by the way, I got to tell you, ZLA Solutions, they've been with us since this show began, and ZLA Solutions is amazing at what they do to help businesses. So here I was talking about all this jobs, and economic development and how we can have workforce incentives and that kind of stuff. And let me tell you, there are also companies like ZLA that are out there helping to foster an environment that makes it easier for businesses to be successful. ZLA Solutions, you can find them on their website at zlausa.com. They can bring all kinds of business end solutions to you. They can help you with your quality control, your sorting and containment, your logistics, your warehousing. But people, man, staffing, that's their bread and butter. If you're looking for folks, ZLA Solutions, they can find them. A lot of those kind of companies that I was just talking about with Senator Gudger a minute ago, ZLA is already in and working with to help find the people they need to staff out different automotive manufacturing plants, major service industries, hospitals, all of it. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, I always say it don't matter. They can help you. So if you need people, if you need business help, they're there to do nothing more than to help you make your business better. Go to ZLA Solutions on their website at zlausa.com. Friends of mine, I trust them implicitly. I was texting with them earlier today. ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. All right, I tell you what, I don't know where to begin. We got so many little mini dippers, but the first thing I was going to do is go to the phone because I know that Brian from Huntsville is hanging on. Hey, Brian, how you doing, buddy?
Been better, been worse, but so have we all. But,
okay.
Boomer, thank you for setting up the Bragging Rights football contest. And what I was talking about was Don McLean's American Pie.
Yeah.
And me being a Tennessee fan and some Auburn fans, I want to pick on my Bama buddies. And that would be, bye, bye, Bama will cry. Saban drove to the levee and his gas tank ran dry. Them good old boys will go home and cry. This is the day they deny.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well, you know what? I bet John from Huntsville's going to give you a good grade today.
Y'all have a wonderful evening.
I'll see you, brother. Well, that was hilarious.
That was awesome.
I did not know he was a Tennessee fan.
I did. I knew it.
Okay, here's what you've got to do now, Boomer.
Yeah.
Now you got to find the sound effect of that young kid who was interviewed on the campus talking about what he thought about Tennessee. And
I need to find that.
It's hilarious.
Yes, that is.
There's a bunch of lying snitches.
Snitches?
There's a bunch of snitches, and I hate that orange. It's like that. It's not like orange. It's like that nasty inside of a pumpkin orange.
I need to find that. Coming from Nashville, moving back down here, all my friends up there were, that Tennessee fandom, whatever.
So you were the guy in the room.
I was the guy in the room.
Yeah.
So
they had to razz you, and then you had to watch them get beat.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Brian from Huntsville is a songwriter now. That's good stuff. Hey, I got a couple of mini dippers that have just. I mean, it's like I don't want to wait till Monday. I want to talk about them.
Go on.
So just bear with me. The latest thing, have you heard, Boom Shakalaka, you know how the Biden administration, the Department of Energy, is trying to make changes to your dishwasher, to your air conditioner, to your refrigerator, of course, to your cars.
Of course.
Have you heard the latest thing that came out today that they're applying new regulations to?
There's new ones.
Oh.
Something else.
Let's just picture it. Is there anything in life that makes you comfortable? They will try and change it. Is there anything in life that you feel good about? Well, they will try and change it. Ceiling fans.
Wait, they're trying to change. I just hit the microphone. They're trying to change ceiling fans.
I kid you not.
What do they want them to do?
They want them to be more energy efficient.
Oh.
I mean, never mind.
That's the first thing I would think about is my ceiling fan being energy efficient.
Exactly. And they say that if the new standards are put in place as they are directing, that over the life of the ceiling fan, you'll save $39.
Wow.
I mean, buy a pizza and a half with that. $39.
Over the life of a ceiling fan.
Over the life of the ceiling fan, yes. They say over the lifespan of the new energy efficient fan. They like to say it that way. But they're literally saying, but here's the thing. The cost to manufacturers associated with the increased equipment will total up upwards of $86 million per year. So they're going to increase the cost of manufacturing, but you're going to save money. No, you're not, because they're going to increase the cost of your fan.
Yeah.
So it's a wash. It's
Complete wash.
They can't resist.
What's going to be the next thing?
The next thing they'll go after?
Yeah, what's the next one? I mean, we're finding
Electric
out something-
toothbrushes.
Electric toothbrushes.
I'm just hazarding a guess.
Something.
Your heating pad. I don't know what.
Televisions, probably.
Oh, that's already done. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that's happening.
That's happening.
Yeah. The other mini dipper that I have that I wanted to talk about briefly is, did you see Carlos Santana last night? I mean, I feel like we're on a bit of a ramble here, but I'm all over the board.
No, I did not. What did
Carlos
he say?
Santana, the great Carlos Santana,
Right.
guitarist extraordinaire, been around since the 70s. He came, last night he has raised a lot of eyebrows because he came out in a concert last night. I think it was last night, performing in Atlantic City. No, I take it back. It was just a couple weeks ago, actually, but the video is kind of getting out. He stopped in the middle of his show to share his thoughts on transgenderism. Yes. And his words were, "When God made you and me, before we came out of the womb, you know who you are and what you are. And when you see things, start believing things, you need to understand that a man is a man and a woman is a woman." Okay, that's it. And he said, and then he said, "That's it. Whatever you want to do in the closet, that's your business. I'm okay with that." In other words, he's saying, keep it to yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So yeah, it's just caught a lot of people off guard because he's supposed to be on board with the narrative. Doesn't he know? Did he not get the memo? How is a rock star allowed to say something like this? Anyway, you saw
They're
music.
getting fed up.
They are getting fed up.
Stop telling me what to do. Let me do what I'm supposed to do, and that is entertain my guests.
That's exactly right.
Entertain everyone.
Follow my calling and do what I do. Y'all stop it. By the way, the grades I think are in. Yes. John from Huntsville just said, Brian from Huntsville just stole the trophy from Boomer with an A++. And he said, he's telling Brian, he said, you can be my co-writer any day, in fact. He said, I'm writing a new song now about Boomer called The Boomerang. But he did go on to say, he says, Phil, after I added some extra credit points for that awesome mini dipper and the awesome guest, you get an A+. Roger in the wood shop and Jeff from Indiana also get an A+. Boomer, even though you didn't play a lot of sound effects, you're still today's winner with an A++. But then you also lost that because Brian came along with the song.
Right, because then Brian.
Yeah. And for setting up the college football pick'em contest and giving me a second chance to redeem myself. All right, speaking of which, brother, before we go,
Yeah.
college pick'em. Talk
All
about
right,
it again.
college pick'em. All right, so if you did not receive a text or if it does not work for you, go to our website, www.rightsideradio.org, and in the right-hand top corner, you'll see a little link. Press it, and it'll give you directions and another link where you can push it to go register for the college pick'em. This is just for fun. We're having a good old time. Right Side Ruffians, if you want to join us. I mean, I'm sure there's some Right Side Ruffians out there that love their football too.
Oh yeah, and
absolutely.
So I've never done one of these. So what's going to happen? I'll sign up this weekend, and then I'll get an email every week telling me the game of the week.
Yeah.
or
So
games
in
of
the settings,
week.
when you sign up, you'll see little check boxes, and it can tell you, "Hey, please send me an email telling me it's the day before the game and I need to register. Go on and pick my picks and stuff." And it's only picking the ones that you want to win. It's not doing the spread because I know some people don't enjoy that or don't understand it. So we just went. Who's going to win?
That involves math. I wouldn't do that. All right. So let me ask you this: Is it just SEC? Is it?
No. We're doing. It is the top 25. So basically, out of the top 25 teams that are ranked, that it'll randomly pick what teams are on there.
So what you're saying is I might not see Auburn a whole lot.
Yeah, but hey, you are very excited about it. You may see them all the time, and I'm sure
might.
there's going to be a lot of people that look to see if you pick Auburn every single time.
Because Hugh Freeze is there now.
There you go.
I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Just wow. All right. Hey, listen. We got plenty more of that came from. So on Monday we're back here at 2:00, and you guys know the deal. We'll be solid conservative and just plain right there too. But we love our Right Side Ruffians. It's been a great week of interacting with all of you. Loved meeting some of you in person at Terry's Pizza the other night. Love the fact that a bunch of you have already signed up to join in the college pick'em with us. And listen, you're the reason why we do this, all right? Boomer and I sit here, we can just talk into a can, ain't nobody listening, why are we doing it? So, no, we got a huge audience, and we do not take it for granted. We love each one of you. Have an amazing weekend. I mean, remember this, too. The message here is Jesus is Lord, America is great, Alabama is beautiful, and life is worth living. And you're going to hear it all the time on this show. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.